Does that guide? There's no guide or protector for them. I bear witness that none has the right to be worshipped except for Allah. And that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is his last and final messenger sent to mankind. O you who believe, fear Allah as he should be feared, but do not die except as a Muslim. O mankind, revere your Lord who created you from a single soul, and then created its mate, and then from them both he created many men and women. And fear Allah to whom you demand your equal right, and do not cut off the ties of kinship with the womb that bore you, for verily Allah is the watch over you. When you believe, fear Allah and say a word that is straightforward and truthful. يصلح لكم أعمالكم. He will guide you to the righteous actions. ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم and forgive you your sins. ويطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Whoever obeys Allah and His Messenger, they are indeed the successful ones. As for that which follows, the most truthful of speech is the book of Allah. And the best of all guidance is the guidance of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the most foul and wicked and blameworthy and affair is a bid'ah. For a bid'ah is a dalala, a going astray, and every stray will take you to the fire of hell. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. For the next 20 minutes or so, inshallah ta'ala, that it is 20 minutes, and that He allows us to have these next 20 minutes, I want you to pay keen attention to what I'm about to say. Most of what I'm going to say is not going to make any sense in the beginning to some of us. Some may be able to catch on and see exactly what I'm talking about. I want to recount something to you that I have recounted many times before, but I do this particularly because in the next, I believe, 9 or 8 days or so, we'll be into the month of Ramadan. Inshallah ta'ala, we make it. I mean, what I want to talk about in particular is Hadayah. Hadayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is direct guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Direct guidance from Allah. Hadayah. Beautiful thing. This is Nur. This is light. Coming from the source. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I want to mention a tradition of ours. You'll find in the Sahih narration, when Rasulullah after Salat al-Fajr, he would turn to his companions and ask a question and say, who has seen a dream? This is the Sunnah. Then they would try to interpret the dream. Rasulullah would tell them whether they were right or wrong and this or that. And there's many different narrations that talks about this. Dreams. This is a very important part of our deen too. So I want to tell you about a dream my brother had. He told me about this dream. And since I've done it before, and it would be remiss of me not to allow you to get it in its totality, because I only used to tell half of it. I never told the whole thing, except for I think one time before I mentioned it. So I will mention it here, and I don't think I mentioned it here before. And the first part of this dream, the brother said he was sitting inside of a classroom, and he had other people there. There was a brother and somebody else that was there. They were in the classroom, and then the teacher was teaching. And I believe it was saying that, who knows the right answer? He knew the answer, and he picked the answer. And the other people were having trouble understanding, what the answer. And as I recollect, it was saying that it was asking, what did the author mean by this statement? And you had to figure it out. Like, what did he mean by this statement? So the brother who had the answer was like, oh, this is like, it's obvious what it means. It was obvious to him. It was obvious to him. But to the other classmates, it wasn't obvious. So then the teacher said, you're right. And then the teacher started explaining why it was right. And he was kind of like, oh, wait a minute. Like, he didn't want the teacher to give him the answer. So he said that in this dream, and mind you, please pay close attention to this, because this is all of it's important. But in this dream, that after the dream, how sometimes we have dreams, and then it's like a dream within a dream. and it shifts or it changes. You was in one place, now you're in another place, and you can't make sense of it. It makes sense. So he had this dream, inside of a dream, to where now it shifted. To where now everything is fading in. And you know how on TV and the movies, this is how he explained it. Like on TV inside the movies, whenever somebody has a flashback, there's this like, it fades in and you see the room. He said this is how it was happening inside the dream. He was sitting at the table. And he said then he could pick up listening to sounds he was hearing. And the sound he was hearing in it, he heard sounds that it was like, like music they have in a restaurant. Like that, it's not jazz, it's not classical music, but it's like in between. You can hear instruments and whatever playing. So he's in the restaurant and it smells like a restaurant and he's sitting at the table and he's like at the center of the table where you can see the kitchen for some reason. And he said it was a nice restaurant. So it was real nice. And as he looked around in there, he noticed that the restaurant that he was in, he noticed that they had wine. And so he knew that it was not a halal place, right? Not just because of the music. We said, oh, they got wine and liquor. He said, okay, so he's there. So as he's there, he starts to look at a menu to get something. He saw him here, he wants to order something. So he's looking at the menu. And the menu, he's looking at things, he can recognize some of the things in the menu. And as he's reading and looking, he sees these plates, they had pictures, I guess. And you can see things he recognized. And as he's looking, the waiting staff is bringing those things to him. He never asked for any of these things. These things are just coming to him. And he's looking, he's like, oh, he's telling him, like, nah, I didn't order that. Like he's saying, I didn't order that. He's trying to keep telling him everything he's seeing is coming to him. And then he sees something that he recognizes, and they bring it over, and it was like, it's like a salad with like shrimp in it or something like that, and there was something else in it. And as he's looking, all right, so he got, started feeling a little bad. He keep telling people, keep going. He said, all right, I'll take it. It looked like something I can eat this. So he looks at it, and it has rice, and it's like salad and shrimp, and there's these black things in it, and the black things were crickets. And he was like trying to pick them out because he felt bad. He didn't want to sit in the bag. He said, well, I can eat what's on it. I'll take them out. Some places this is a delicacy, but I don't do that. I don't eat this. So he's taking them out, and as he's taking them out, they started to move. He said, I can't take this at all. So he calls them over, say, like, get this out of here. So as he's looking at the menu, then he sees a dish, and it's this amazing looking dish, and they bring it out, and it's like this gold-colored rice. It's like golden. And then this meat. And the way he described it, he said, I couldn't tell what kind of meat it was, whether it was beef or lamb or something, but he said it was like a piece of meat, and it was just delicious. And they had chicken that he could recognize. It was like chicken. And he had this chicken, this rice, and it's all of this, and he's eating it. And he said it's the best thing he ever tasted in his life. He said there's nothing that he's ever ate. It's the best rice he ever had in his life. And he said as he's eating, he then ate all of the meat. And he's like, well, I need more chicken to go with this rice because there's a lot of rice. So he didn't want to eat all of his rice. So then he calls the waiter over and he says, hey, can I get some more, because I missed one thing. It was this white sauce that was all over everything. This white sauce was on everything. And it was banging. It was all that. And so as he has a little bit of rice left, he wants some chicken to go with it. You know how we do. Like, oh man, this rice, I don't want to eat all that. I want the chicken to go with it. So he calls the waiter over and says, hey, can you get me some more of this white sauce and some more chicken? So the waiter, then he leans over the table. Now he's over top of his food. So the brother was like looking at him. He just said he was like, what you doing? So he's over top of his food now, over top of his plate. And he said, you want some more of this? And he stuck his finger in his food. Then he tasted it and said, we ain't got no more of that. And the brother was like, what's going on? What just happened? So the food was so good, so I'm still going to eat that. And I still want some more chicken. So they said, yeah, I can get you some more chicken. So then the waiter leaves, and the brother can see him go into the kitchen to get the chicken, and he goes in the freezer. and he pulls out some frozen chicken thing. And then he throws it into one of them convection ovens, throws it in there. Not just puts it, he throws it in there. Throws it in there, cooks it, brings it out to him. He's seeing this. But the food is so good. He's just accepting this. It's so good. He brings out the chicken. And he throws it on the table and said, there, here you go. So then the brother wakes up, but he wakes up back in the other dream. Now he's back in the classroom. And the explanation to the answer was what was on the board is being explained to him. Really kind of how those stuff really want to go. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Now I know that's a lot to remember, and I know it seems weird and it seems strange, but this brother said that he said this dream meant something. And it wouldn't leave his heart. It was heavy on his heart, and he had to reflect upon it. And he sought answers to what did this dream mean, because it didn't make any sense. And it probably doesn't make any sense to any of us right now. So the explanation that he did get to the dream, and as I'm including the first part, is even though some things can be clear to somebody else just by looking at it, it may not be as clear to someone else. They may need to have it explained in order for them to understand something. And because for him, he didn't want the answer that's given to him. He wanted to be able to figure it out. So hence him having this other dream. So inside of this other dream, now you got to figure out what all of this stuff means without any explanation. So in the beginning of the dream, within the dream, when he was inside of the restaurant, the restaurant was an example of clearly of what the dunya is. Everything inside the dunya. Everything. And him sitting inside of there, and when he was sitting there, and it was all these things that came to him without asking, it was the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends us everything that we need without even asking for it. Where things just happen because it just happened. We don't even know why. When things come right on time and say, man, I never expected this to happen this way. Or how did I meet this person? Because of this, this, or that, or whatever situation it may be. From Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what he wrote for us. This is what he has given us. And there's so many things that we get without even asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. It comes to us daily, and a lot of times we're so ungrateful about what comes, we're just shooing these blessings away. These are blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We get without even asking. But we're missing these miracles inside our lives because why? You know, there's some kibr. There's some type of, we're looking at things and saying, oh, I don't use that. I don't eat that. I'm not going to take that. SubhanAllah. This is ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't know where the blessing is for you. Allah knows what's better for you than you know. And sometimes you need to swallow that pride, and sometimes you need to try something different. You never know where the ni'mah is coming from. But in all of this, showing these things away, because there's another part to that too. And he says that, and then when there's something recognizable that you take, he said that recognizable plate that he took was a representation of his the good deeds. And the black crickets that was inside of that dish that he took, that they were dead. So this is making tawbah, because those dead crickets were representative of sins. But when it became alive, that's when you went back to committing the sins, and this is when it became unacceptable. So he says that this is a moment to where interchangeable, to where as though that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala became the patron, right? Not that he became in any kind of form. Understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying it like that. But I'm saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this was just like Allah, when we are offering something that we were the servants. When the servant came out bringing all these things, offering all those different things, they were defective. Those deeds were defective. There was some type of shirk, there was some type of riyah, there was some type of something connected with those deeds that made them unacceptable. They weren't according to the sunnah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, no, he's not accepting that. So then when the dish that came that was recognizable, this looks okay, that those dead crickets were a representation of sins. And they became alive when we go back to those sins, they become alive, and then it became unacceptable. And he said that the golden plate that came that was so perfect, because now we are the servers, and we're bringing this golden dish, and this dish is beautiful. It's done this correctly. Everything was perfect. That this is a representation of the best of our deeds. The best of our deeds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do, that's perfect, and he takes them. And he loves them. And he wants more of it. The same way that this brother wanted more of that food, and it tasted so beautiful and so delicious, nothing was like it. He wanted more and more of it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants more and more and more good from us. And he says that did we go from that and being the server who was giving out all this great service in the beginning to the one who stuck his finger in? This is what happens to our salah. We start pecking like hens and roosters at the salah. We start speeding through dhikr. Astaghfirullah, 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 astaghfirullah. We start speeding through the salah, speeding through the dhikr of Allah, speeding through our lives, speeding through every act and every deed. We pay no attention to anything. There's no care given to anything. So the same kind of feeling that this person would have to say, why would you take that after this? Why would after such good service, if the service gets so bad? Why would it get so bad after that? And you'll see that after that, what the waiter did, because now we are the waiters, the waiter went over, he took the chicken, he threw it in the oven, and he came back and threw the plate down. This is what we do with our salah. What are we offering? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not pleased with that. Why would you want to be pleased with that kind of service? Now, what kind of service that we do inside this deen? What are we doing? Are we doing what pleases Allah, or are we doing what pleases ourselves? So, after having this conversation and making sense of all of this, that seemed not to make any sense. But the brother paid attention to what his dream was, because he needed to discover this answer on his own. As he said when he sat inside the classroom, he didn't want the answer given to him. Some people, like the mushrikeen and the kuffar, they want everything laid out for them. They want everything laid out. They don't want to accept that you got to work for it. You got to want to be guided. If you don't want to be guided, why would you be guided? That doesn't make any sense. You got to want to be guided. At least start there. So because this thing bothered this brother so much that he needed to understand what this meant. And this is a glimpse of what this meant to him and what he shared and what now I also share with you. Hopefully that we receive some type of, we reflect on it. If you look at the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he looked at the people he was surrounded by, the kufr, the shirk that he was witnessing, how he grown so disgusted with it that he left to go on a spiritual journey to try to figure out what did all of this mean. Contemplating creation, contemplating life, because nothing, these things didn't fit. And for most of us that reverted, converted, however you want to do it, that came to Islam, that were witnesses of what the mushrikeen and the kuffar, and this culture, and this the way that they live, we had a sense of disgust by what does all this mean? This doesn't make sense. And this is the question you got to ask yourself. Again, a statement I always make. If you're in the same place you were at 10 years ago, you got a problem. As far as in your deen. You got to want it. If you think we're going to tiptoe our ways to Jannah, inshallah ta'ala, but we have to be conscious of everything that's happening for us. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting everything in front of us. We can't see it. What are we blinded by? The month of Ramadan is coming, alhamdulillah, And it's the moment to where as though fasting opens up all of the systems. When we're fasting the right way, everything will be exposed to us. Our feelings and our emotions and everything connected with the salat will be heightened if we truly are seeking that. So it's right now that we need to straighten our niyah and get prepared for that. We need to get prepared. The same way you prepare to go to work, go to school, the same way that you prepare, even better than that. You have to get prepared. So be ready, because everything that should be exposed to you will come. Wallahi, I swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make me truthful in my swearing by Him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show you everything you need. And He's showing you everything you need now, but you can't see your miracle in front of you. Why? Because of all of the sins. So we're blinded, and our hearts are deaf. Deaf heart doesn't hear anything, can't see anything. SubhanAllah. It's beyond seeing with your eyes. This is basirah. This is deep discerning, spiritual looking. Your spirit has been crushed. It's closed. So how are you going to receive this ayat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How are you going to receive a hadith from Rasulullah? Well, He tells us that, He Subhanallah wa bihamdihi wa sallallahu Muhammad Rasulullah. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells us authentic narration. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to us. He responds to us every time we recite Surah Al-Fatiha. We're literally having a conversation with Allah. La ilaha illallah. I'm sorry. The month of Ramadan is an opportunity and a chance to reset and erase everything. La ilaha illallah. It is a chance and an opportunity to set our niyahs right, finally, for the first time, finally over again. Our strivings and our strugglings and everything else, I'm telling you, these things are for a purpose. Sometimes we got to be broke down to be built back up the right way. Sometimes we got to go below zero in order for us to be able to see. One of the greatest explanations or analogies that I can think of is when your child almost get hit by a car. And you're so upset and you're so angry at your child. You love your child so much that when you go to them, you grab them, and you're like, what was you doing? Don't do that. You don't want to hurt them. You want to hold them, but you want them to remember this. And they remember that shake. They remember we almost got hit by a car, and, Umi or Abby did this. And they won't ever forget that. And there's some things that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us, He will send something to us, something so dramatic that will cause us to remember Him because we forgot. We don't mention Him the same way we do from before. And that's the problem. And this is why we're so far away from the Sunnah. So we need to come back to the Sunnah, and we need to pay attention to what's happening. We need to pay attention to what's happening inside our lives, because these are messages. This is a hadayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm telling you, do not miss your miracle. Do not miss what's in front of you, and do not get bogged down by your past. The past isn't your potential, neither it is your future, inshallah ta'ala. So we need to rise above all of whatever we think we're going through, mentally, physically, psychologically, spiritually, and we need to get prepared to get correct during the month of Ramadan and give it our all. No half-stepping, no playing games, everything. We're going to eat halal because we want everything to be sound. See, eating halal isn't just about because the food is good and it was killed right and everything else. This affects our ruh. It affects your ruh. It affects our spirit. It changes us. It makes us more susceptible to the whispers of shaitan in our own lives. Now, I'm not saying don't do what you have to do, because everybody can't afford halal food. Do your best. But for Ramadan, clean it out. Eat only halal and see how that changes your life. Make a sacrifice for yourself and your family. Make a sacrifice. Do it for Allah. Change something. Because it's going to be terribly hard for anything to be right, because everything is connected. Your mind, your mental stability, your health, your ruh, everything that they say. In computer language, they have a thing that they call giggle, right? Garbage in, garbage out. The problem with the computer, the problem is the programmer or the one that's typing in the keys. So what you put into yourself is what you want to get out from yourself. What you put into this deed is what you want to get out of this deed. If you put in nothing, you get nothing. If you throw garbage in, we want to reject it. You're going to get garbage out. That's just the way that it is. This isn't something to be played with. This is your life. This is your deed. I love you all for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us for our sins, past, present, future, open, hidden, and apparent. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on our brothers and sisters who preceded us in the Barzakh. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us all in knowledge. To grant us all ma'arifatullah, ma'arifatul nabi, ma'arifatul deen al-Islam. We want to have knowledge and awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowledge and awareness of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and knowledge and awareness of this deen. We want to have all of that, and we want it to be inculcated into our limbs. We want it to be on our limbs, on our tongue. We want it to be the way that we dress, the way that we look, how we take care of ourselves, not just some lip service, not just because we got a beard. Beard in the kufi doesn't mean anything. Your akhlaq, your adab. And remember one thing, and this is my last advice that I will give to everybody. Never concentrate on trying to be right. Do not concentrate on trying to be right or get into debates and arguments with people. Do not concentrate, because being right will lead you down the path of shaitan. You say, what do you mean by that? This is one of the biggest mistakes that shaitan made. Because shaitan's whole deal is he wants to be right. He wants to prove Allah wrong. He wants to prove Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrong. His ego. This is the problem with ego, because this is what happens. We get into these conversations and debating about this or that or with each other. We're trying to prove that we're right. And we're coming from the Quran and the Sunnah. You're right this, you're right that. Versus I'm trying to have ikhlas, trying to have sincerity and be truthful. Concentrate on being truthful. Be true. And be true to your covenant that you made with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وقل قال هذا واستغفر ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك كما صلى.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة قم الصلاة قم الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
You have room in the back, or do you need to move up?
You got space to move up, move up. No,
Huh? Okay. Sure, because it ain't turned off. Okay, there you go.